This time on KEI Fabrication. Alright folks, so what I want to do here, I've got the whiteboard ready to go. It's been officially updated from B2200 to B5300. And you watched me erase the board because we kind of want to start with a clean slate here. A lot of the things on the list were completed. Some of the things on the list are going to remain as to-do items, and there's some changes that we'll talk about in just a moment. So some of you might be wondering what the heck is going on with a Mazda. You haven't been doing any videos on it lately. Alright folks, so let me explain. Alright, we're about to take our life in our hands.
Hurry up, we're gonna go all the way down.
Getting ready to go on another little reconnaissance mission. Nice. Hey folks, my name is Mike. This is KEI Fabrication, and welcome to my shop. And this is my most recent project, and this is my shop truck, my daily driver, my race truck, my garbage truck, and my all-around performance vehicle. If you want to follow along with the channel, you can see the progress of the build on this truck and all the modifications that have been made. So this truck has already been to car shows, it's been road racing, it's been drag racing, and it's been circle track racing. We've got a bunch more new projects in the queue. We're looking forward to meeting more of you, and for those of you who've been with the channel for a while, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your comments and the interaction and encouragement. I hopefully through this project we've gained some credibility with you folks, and let's see what's coming up next. Well, headed back into the shop. Got some work to do in there. Oh, now what do you want? I just fed you a couple hours ago. Go do what it is you guys do all day long. Oh, key would help. Alright folks, I want to share something with you. I got some, this is another first for KEI Fabrication in our YouTube channel, is I've actually received my first fan mail. Now, I cheated. I already opened this because I've never received fan mail before, and somebody sent me a package. I figured I'd open it up. Well, I opened it up, and somebody sent me these awesome C-clamps, and there's a cool story about how I ended up with these. So I got two of these giant C-clamps, and I'm super thankful for them because you can never have too many of these. And not that I got fan mail, which means somebody's actually watching my videos, so that's cool. But when I opened it up, I was even more pleasantly surprised. So it says, "Hi Mike, how are things going? First off, I just want to say I'm a big fan of your YouTube channel. I've watched all of the videos and find them not just entertaining but very informative as well. In one of the episodes, you mentioned that when you come across good quality C-clamps, whether at a yard sale, flea market, or swap meet, you try to pick them up. I myself do the same thing. Enclosed are two extra ones I had. I'm sure you can put them to good use." And absolutely, I can put them to good use. "Keep putting out the great video, and I look forward to seeing you at the next swap meet." So the cool thing about this is it's signed Kevin and number 37. So as it turns out, when I had my shop, I was building race cars and equipment for race cars. Kevin was a customer of mine, and he drove the number 37. Now, I really, really liked Kevin, and we developed a nice relationship during our racing career. And the reason why I always admired Kevin is he was always the guy that just didn't do what everybody else was doing. When everybody was running Chevys, he ran a Ford just to be different. And he was a very talented driver, and he had a good crew. They worked out of a small shop. They did, all of their success was based on the amount of homework that they did. And I just really admire those kinds of guys and the teams that race with them. So brought back some memories for me. It ended up being an old friend that actually found my YouTube channel, and he sent me some really awesome C-clamps, which I will definitely be using not only on this project but others. So huge shout out to Kevin. Thanks so much for watching. My very first fan mail. I'm super excited, and I can't say how much of a smile it brought on my face to receive these. Not only the fact that it's my first fan mail ever, but it came from such a cool guy. And one of the things that was the most pleasurable about me having my business and working with other racers, either repairing their cars, supplying them with good stuff to make them go faster, helping them do setups and things like that, is those relationships I started 25 years ago. Those folks became my friends, and we still keep in touch today. Not just because this guy sent me some fan mail, but every swap meet we go to, or when I go to the racetracks, we always, when we find each other, it's tough to break away because we're catching up, sharing stories, and many of my former customers are racing with their children. So that's always cool to see as well. So thanks again. I really appreciate it, and because it meant so much to me, I wanted to take a moment and share it with everyone. There might be only one or two that watches my channel. So thanks again, Kevin. Really appreciate it. I can't tell you how much that meant to me. All right, folks. Oh, crap. All right, folks. What I've been attempting to do in recent days is 3D print the B2300, and I tried to mimic the font and the size and position of things. Still some cleanup work to do, and I only have the ability to print it in black and gray. Trying to figure out how to do that different, like either a vinyl decal wrap or something like that. These might be available soon. I've got the 3D models built for the B4800, B5300, B5700, and B6000. So if you're interested in those, let me know. They're not necessarily a weatherproof thing, but I think if you sprayed some clear coat on it, it would certainly last. It's just 3D printed plastic material. Not the most durable, but certainly to the untrained eye, it wouldn't look that much different. And for those people who know, about LS swapping, they'd really appreciate it. So I also have a mini version that's only about 2 inches long. That would make a nice little dash plaque. I'm hoping to offer those up, so watch for those. If you're interested, let me know. Alright folks, so what I want to do here, I've got the whiteboard ready to go. It's been officially updated from B2200 to B5300. And you watched me erase the board because we kind of want to start with a clean slate here. A lot of the things on the list were completed. Some of the things on the list are going to remain as to-do items, and there are some changes that we'll talk about in just a moment. So some of you might be wondering what the heck is going on with a Mazda. You haven't been doing any videos on it lately. The reason is because, first of all, I'm still driving it, and I've recently got into a situation where I can disable this vehicle for a while and drive another vehicle while this is undergoing some more changes. So this is the middle of March 2021, and you know, the weather's been nasty. We've been plowing snow and all that sort of thing, and we had some major life hurdles that we needed to jump over starting in January, and we're still going through those things. So it's just getting to the point now where I can start focusing on this, and I wanted to get a jump start on the old number 7, and we've made some good progress on this. I'm working hard to make this thing a roller. I'm waiting for some rims and some tires because some of the things I got going on that are coming up shortly are going to require this thing to be rolled out temporarily and make room for some of the things that we got going on with the Mazda. So let's jump to the whiteboard here and let's talk about one of the many things that are going to happen here in the next 2 months, and probably the most critical thing. So give me a moment and we'll discuss that. All right, so one of the main things I've got to do here right now in the truck's current condition is a roll cage. And I say cage because I've decided that I am not going to just put a roll bar in. One of the reasons why I was heading down the road last year as a roll bar is just the time saver thing, because I had seats and I needed a seat belt harness bar, and I needed something to mount the race seats to be legal. The roll bar would have been sufficient at the time. However, that wasn't really consistent with the growth plan and the reserve capacity that I hope to have in this truck. So first of all, let's talk about something about what I want to do with this truck. So one of the primary things I want to be able to do with this truck is certainly drag race. Another thing that I want to be able to do with this truck is at some point I'd like to be able to drift. And I am not talking about competitive drifting. I'm just talking about going to a club day and learning how to drift. I think it's a really, really high level of driving ability, and I want to try to learn how to do that. However, I'm a little bit leery because it is extremely abusive on engines. So I don't have an unlimited budget. Matter of fact, I have an extremely small budget or non-existent budget. So I don't want to keep rod knocking a bunch of LS engines. And I don't necessarily want to spend the money to build a motor that can run on the rev limiter at 6,700 or 7,000 RPM for hours on end. But I certainly want to be able to do that. The other thing I want to be able to do is autocross. I want to be able to do spectator drags. And if you don't know what spectator drags are, it's basically drag racing around an oval track. You start from a dead stop, 2 cars, you race a complete lap, first one to the finish line wins. So it's a little bit of circle. Should have used Gorilla Tape instead of painter's tape, huh? So that's spectator drags. There's a video showing the truck doing a very short segment of that. But it's a lot of fun. It's inexpensive. Not a whole lot of seat time unless you're super successful. I do want to do some of the, I'm neglecting to call it road racing because I'm not competitively driving this on a road course. I'm just doing the driver improvement nights. And the SCCA, I'm going to abbreviate this, does a track night in America. And I've done that before. There's a video, not of in-car footage or anything like that, because I didn't have a camera at the time. But I really like driving on a road course. It's challenging, and I'd like to be able to do that. And another thing that I'd like to be able to do is the speed trials, which is, there's a club here in New England that rents an airport a few times a year, and there's also another organization that does several airports around the country, and the goal is 150 miles per hour. So the reason why I'm talking to you about this is it's important to understand what the goals are when you're trying to build one of these. And every one of these situations requires their own type of their own type of roll cage, the materials it's constructed from, the diameter of the tubing, the placement of the tubes. So it's a real challenge to have a vehicle that can do a lot of things. I understand this is a tall order, and a vehicle that is designed to do this many things isn't going to do any of them really well. It might be able to do most of them reasonably well, but it's certainly, if I set it up to do any of these, a lot of these things take away from the performance of drag racing. And if I specifically made it to do this, it wouldn't do a lot of these things well. So, however, there's a group of these things that all fit well together, and the drag racing and the speed trials are very similar as well. So every one of these organizations has their own rules about these things. So if you look at all the rule books for these kinds of things, I can build the cage that goes in the middle of the truck, in other words, the driver's compartment of the truck. If I make it out of 1 5/8 by 083 chrome moly, it'll actually fit into all of these categories. And even if I wanted to go SCCA club racing, as long as the truck was below 2,700 pounds, which is going to be a real challenge. I don't think I'd ever be able to do that without putting it on a more severe diet. But so I am in the next day or so, I'm going to be going to the tubing store, and I'm going to be buying the material 1 5/8 by 083 chrome moly. And I need approximately, and I'll talk about why I need so much, but I need approximately 80 feet. I only need just slightly over 50 feet to do this much. However, I'm going to have to do the rear supports behind the cab and go down to the frame, so that's an additional amount. I'm going to have to do more door bars for some of these other things, so that's going to require a little more material. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do here. I may take a combination of a drag race and SCCA and do the X bracing, and I'm definitely going to have a rocker bar down low because the frame is pretty far inboard of the rockers, and I got to make extensions off of the frame anyway. so the truck frame rail is inboard here. So I've got to make some stanchions, if you will, that reach out to the cage, and under the floorboard I'm going to have a rocker bar that connects the two, and that'll prevent some of the side impact for drifting and so on and so forth. Some of the additional information or the additional material is going to be, I am going to put some bars out into the engine bay. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Primarily is, if I'm going to go through the exercise of tearing this down, I want to make sure I build in all of the capacity at the time, because there's nothing worse than going back in and making changes once the vehicle is all put together. So these are going to act as the foundation for what will eventually be some coilovers. So we're going to switch this from torsion bars to coilovers at some point, and so I need that support here, and I can put a bolt-in brace going left and right to prevent some deflection of that, and there'll be some sort of structure that hooks to that also connects to the frame. So I wanted to just let you know, one of the reasons why this is on hold is because we're doing a lot of planning and a lot of research to make sure that if I go to all of these things, they're not going to make me put it on the trailer and take it home and not allow me to make any runs. So it's taken a long time to come to this decision, and it's not cheap. It's actually the most expensive option. I think right now the quote I have on this stuff is somewhere around $625 per. It's like a 19-foot stick. Chrome moly, the way it's processed, it doesn't always come out to 20 foot even or 24 foot. So so you're talking $120 a stick. So automatically, you know, you're into $700, $800 for material, just sitting on the floor waiting to be bent up, notched, and welded. So that's where we're at with the roll cage. I'm just going to talk real quickly about the engine. And just like trying to come to spending what I call smart money on the structure for the roll cage, I want to try and do the same thing. So we are upgrading to a 6-liter. And I am working with my cylinder head expert, Iwaniki Racing Services, and we're trying to put together the best compression ratio to fit in this realm of usage, which is a pretty wide spectrum. I get that. We're trying to balance what we're doing here. And again, we're doing heads, we're doing cam. I'm going to put a harmonic balancer on it just to take some of the rod pounding out of it. It's going to get a road racing oil pan, which will work well for all of these things. And I'm probably going to put an AccuSump in it. Cam lifters, upgraded lifter retainers, push rods, those kinds of things. So that's happening right now. That's in the process. The very beginning stages of the process, but it is going currently kind of running parallel with what's about to happen here. I'm also going to purchase HP tuners. I may have already done it, and it might already be on its way when this video is released. And that'll help us get the most out of this engine. Obviously right now it's tuned for the 5.3, so we're going to get a little better injectors, a little better fuel pump. All those things are going to happen. So another huge thing that I'm about to undertake is I'm basically going to focus on the truck from the cab forward, right? So from here forward, it's going to get some major updates and some minor updates back here. Okay? So one of the things I'm going to do is I really think I'm going to, from the wheel center line forward, I'm going to make some big changes. Some of those big changes are going to be, as I said before, coilovers. I'm actually going to do like a semi tube front snout from just ahead of the front control arms. What I'm also going to do is take the factory lower control arm strut rod and I'm going to modify that. So the lower strut rod, right now from the factory it has a bracket in the frame, it has a bushing here, and the rod comes through, and then there's a bushing on the other side with a big washer and a nut that tightens it all down. I'm going to eliminate all of this and I'm going to put a hind joint in here. I ran into some issues where I put some replacement, actually used some higher durometer rating bushings, and in the matter of a few thousand miles those are all pounded, and I lost all of my caster that I had built into the most recent suspension alignment, and I just think it'll be more competitive and a better road racer, probably a better drag racer, because I think my front suspension will be less bound up and more free, and more rigid, and it'll hold my suspension alignments better. So that's definitely something I want to do. I started already doing a front and rear sway bar, so I'll just talk about the front one because again most of my focus is going to be from the cab forward, and that includes the cage and updates in that area. The sway bar, the way it's going to be set up is for drifting, road racing, spectator drags, those sorts of things. I can either remove it for drag racing, or if the truck seems like it's behaving well with it in there, I'll just leave it. And so I've already got most of that built. There'll be a video all by itself for all of these individual things. There'll obviously be several videos for the chassis and roll cage construction. The front sway bar, in the terms of drag racing, I'm kind of a chassis guy. I kind of understand chassis dynamics, and I see a lot of wrecks on the really fast cars that get out of shape even in the first 100 to 300 feet on the drag strip, and when they lift, the car really dives to the front and it loads the front suspension dramatically, and then that is what upsets the rear tires, and it usually ends up driving to the wall, or the car goes really sideways and the slicks dig in and it starts a barrel roll. I think a lot of that could be prevented if there was a front sway bar that was put back into the car that kept the front suspension equally loaded when the car got out of shape. Granted, it may make a lot of negative changes for how the front suspension rises and the interaction of that sway bar trying to keep the nose flat when the car launches, and then I think the main reason why the sway bars are removed from the front on these drag race situations is they just don't want the extra 20 pounds of weight up there. However, I see a lot of drag cars with a bunch of lead bolted in the nose, so it's something that I hope to be able to experiment with, and there's no way that I can do the drifting or the autocrossing, mostly the drifting. When this truck gets sideways, it's very drivable when you're under power, but as soon as you lift, when the power is taken out of the drivetrain, it really does dive back onto the nose, left or right. It upsets the rear by unloading it, and it's a handful to get it back into shape. So if you lose traction coming off a corner when you're road racing, it really does snap left and right pretty hard. Some of that is because of the torsion bar rate, which the coilovers will help, but the majority of that problem is no front sway, or not enough front sway bar. This still has the front sway bar in it. So I'm not necessarily concerned with the drag race package to have the sway bar removed, but it's 4 bolts on the chassis and 2 bolts on the lower control arm, and the whole thing comes off. And it might weigh 25 pounds total. I'm not sure that's worth removing. And I also want to have the experiment, if the vehicle gets out of shape, how does it handle with relationship to having the bar in place or the bar removed. So this truck will never have any power significant enough to get out of shape to the point where you probably can't correct it unless it had some sort of major failure at the back, broken axle, broken studs, flat tire, something to that effect, or kicking a drive shaft out. So when I talked about the engine before, I want you to understand that this is naturally aspirated. I'm not going power adder because for the simple reason, as much as I want to go fast, the real reason is this. I can't afford to purchase either one of the power adder options. Actually, there's more than one. There's several between supercharger, turbocharger, and nitrous. I'm not ready for that, and the turbocharging package in this truck is really, really difficult unless you move the turbos to the back and some of the intercooler package as well. So a little bit of a tangent there, but naturally aspirated, right? All right, so suspension. Coilovers, modify the lower strut rod, front sway bar, and we're going to increase the caster significantly. And one of the major things that I'm going to do is I am going to rack and pinion. And again, these will all be videos coming up in the near future. Rack and pinion. When I do the video for this, you'll see the reasoning why this is hopefully going to be a positive improvement for this truck. First of all, I'm probably going to lose about 25 pounds off the nose. Second of all, I should end up with the same steering ratio as the current box. I am going to go with a manual rack, and I'll explain that, the reasoning behind that. One of the reasons why I am heading in this direction with a manual rack is Jinjiam's Mazda that has the Toyota V8 in it is on a manual rack, and he's drifting that truck okay. And Taylor Ray has a Miata with a manual rack, and it seems like he's not suffering because he's doesn't have power assist. And he's tried all kinds of power assist systems. And if you've watched my channel at all, you'll know that I've been struggling with a power steering problem for a long time. If the manual rack and pinion, if I go through the trouble of putting the manual rack and pinion in, and it's too much of a steering effort, especially in the situations where you really need it, in autocrossing and drifting, and the track nights on the road course. The rack is almost identical in size in the part that goes under the oil pan and the mounting for a power rack, and it's just a matter of taking one out, putting the other in, and putting my power steering assembly back on and connecting up the power steering hoses. So the first one is going to be manual, and then I am going to work on to see if it's unmanageable. I do have shortened steering arms, and that's going to increase my steering effort because I'm taking leverage away. So it may be a problem. I'm going to have big sticky tires on it at some point in the front. We'll see how it works out, and the plan B is go to power. I'm going to reconfigure the whole front of the truck, better radiator support. Again, a semi-tubed front snout that these brackets for the lower strut rods hook to. Might end up being a chromoly cross member. This is a lot of stuff that I want to do. I don't know at what point in the next few months that this will be completed, and the truck is going to go backwards a ton in terms of tearing it apart. Going to completely gut the interior, take the dash out, because I am going to put a dash bar in, even though NHRA doesn't require it. Being around the circle track industry, all my life, I know what the dash bar benefits are in terms of side impact and all that other stuff. So I want to go through the effort of putting the dash bar in. So I'm going to remove everything from, everything to the firewall, and that'll give me plenty of room to weld. And then the challenge is going to be put all the stuff back in around the dash bar. If you're wondering about the roll cage, I'm going to make the entire thing out of 083 1 5/8. NHRA allows you to use 1 1/4 in a lot of locations as substitutions. However, a lot of these do not allow that, so the whole cage is going to be 1 5/8 083. The reason why I'm going in this direction, another reason, is my 1 5/8 die to bend these tubes is my favorite die. It has the perfect radius. It's well within the motorsports minimum radius bending to be legal, and it's just a nice die that gets the tubing to fit nice and close to the A and B post and anything else you're doing. I could use NASCAR tubing, 1 3/4 DOM. As soon as you go into DOM or mild steel tubing, you've got to go up in thickness, which increases the weight. And that is true with most all of these. As soon as you change away from chrome moly, they require a lot thicker material, and I'd probably increase the weight of the truck by, if I did use the 80 feet, you're talking probably 60 pounds additional weight just because of the material change. I just wanted to bring you up to speed. It's kind of like starting over, but I've driven this truck for 2 years. I put 20,000 miles on it, and some of the things that I did were just to get the project as far along as it is, knowing full well that I'm going to go back and make changes. With the work that I did over, in the late fall and in the winter, I've got the budget to handle some of these things. The big ticket items like the engine and the coilovers, I've got more work to do, right? I've got to go out and earn some more extra cash. So the rack and pinion is already here. All the sway bar components are here. I'm not going to tackle the strut rod until I get the truck really stripped down, possibly even get the engine out, just so I got plenty of room to work in that area. Certainly strip the radiator out, power steering cooler, tranny cooler, all that stuff. So I free up the whole front of the truck, so when I start cutting away these things, I'm actually going to do it right here on the lift. I'm going to use the lift as my chassis jig. When I bought this kind of lift, that was always my intention. I can cut tubing all at the perfect height, support the frame, and even set the chassis at the ride height that I want it to be relative to the ground, which is basically the deck of the lift. So this lift has been a blessing, even though the corner posts are out in the middle of the shop and blocking some things. All right, stick with me. This is a long-term thing, a lot of work. A lot of the things that I have going on outside of the shop are going to prevent me from focusing on a lot of this stuff. It's a big project. I'm getting started a little bit late here in order to make it completed. But once you commit to something as invasive, if you will, as this, you have no choice but to tear it out, do your fabrication, and then put it back together But it just makes sense to do all this now instead of do a little bit here and then go back and do a little bit here and then do a little bit here. I need to buy the coilovers to mock up the front strut towers. Tomorrow we're going to get the tubing. It's going to be a little while before I actually get to the point where I strip the truck down, and I've got to get myself positioned well so once I start this project I can focus on it. I got to free up the room in the shop on the other side of the bay, the other bay. At the same time, this project over here, the old number 7, is a priority as well, and I got to get this as a roller, like I said, because I need this to sling tubing. I need this to set up my bender, and then as soon as I'm done with this, I got to start building the roll cage for this. So I'm getting the material tomorrow for this, as well as some sheet metal to replace the galvanizing and all that good stuff. All right, my camera is screaming at me because the battery's about to shut off, so I'm going to let you go here. Sorry for the long-winded dissertation on what's coming up, but hopefully you folks are excited about it, and hopefully you'll follow me along as we get into it as well.